All right, so let's get started with the hardest thing, I think, which is going to be installing the receiver. And what I'm using is the Frsky R-XSR 2.4 gigahertz micro receiver, and it is quite micro. When you open up the packaging, you will get two wire harnesses. You'll get this one with the yellow, red, and black, with a black connector here and a white connector there. And you'll also get a one with a white connector and then wires that just have no connector on it. And then you'll get this really small micro receiver. So I am excited to use this one. And it also comes with instructions, so we'll be using that. The wire harnesses that come with the drone are these three here. And the one with the green wire is going to be the one for the GPS. The one with the red, yellow, and black with two white connectors on both sides is going to be for the video transmitter. You'll also get this one here, all black wires with the white connectors. That's going to be used for the ESC to connect to the flight controller. And then you get this harness, and a lot of times you'll see people snip these off and connect them directly to the receiver that they're using. This fits perfectly in the slot here for the flight controller, but I'm not going to be using it today. What I'm going to be using is the one that came with the receiver, which is this one. I'll go ahead and show you here what the complicated part here for me as a beginner was. So this is the receiver. This will plug in here, no problem. I know that goes together. So let's set that aside for now. Let's go to the instruction manual and see what the pinouts are. And if you look here, you'll see you've got ground, 5 volts, S.Port, SBUS out, and SBUS in. So you'll notice that it has an SBUS in, and a lot of them don't have that. This one does, however, because it's for redundancy. What you could do is get another receiver. In this case, they show an example of using an XM Plus and connecting that SBUS out to this R-XSR SBUS in, which is going to be then this white wire. So I'm not going to be using that right now because I'm not using any kind of redundancy. So I'll go ahead and maybe kind of coil that up a little bit. And the reason I knew it was white is because it plugs in like that. And the black is your ground, which is typical. Then you've got the red wire, which is your plus 5 volts. Your S.Port is this yellow wire, and then you've got SBUS out, which is the green wire. Let's go ahead and show you the flight controller here. The easy way would be to use the wire that the receiver gave you and the one that came with the drone. So you would plug in the drone's cable to the flight controller. You would plug this one into the receiver here. Then you would cut these wires, you would cut those wires, and then you would basically splice those together and solder them together so that everything's connected. But I'm going to use this one because I want to use more features. In order to do that, I won't be able to use the connector that came with the flight controller. If you turn it over, you'll see all of these gold pads, and they all correspond. They're basically, I don't want to say test points or test pads, but they're pads that are directly linked to the pins of the connectors. So this connector here is for the receiver. Flip it over and you'll be able to see all of these different connections here. And you'll be able to see that you've got RX2 for this pad, SBUS to this pad, and then the two middle ones are your voltage ones. So the top one is 3.3 volts, the bottom one is 4.5 volts. This says it uses 5 volts, so there's no exactly 5 volts on here, but obviously I'm going to use the higher one, 4.5 volts. And then you've got two ground pads on there. One more thing to mention is that this here where it says SBUS, you need to solder or bridge those pads together. This one was already done when I received it, so I don't have to do anything, but you do have to solder that connection for SBUS. And if you're using anything else like PPM, DSM, you would solder the right two pads. So this has already been done for me. That's a lifesaver, or a time saver, I guess. And we won't have to worry about that. So we'll just go ahead and get started on soldering the receiver onto the backside flight controller. So I'm going to start with the ground wire. If you have a nice pair of tweezers like this where you squeeze and then you let go, it actually holds what's inside there. So the first thing to do, let's first put our flux here because that'll definitely help us out. So what I did was I was going to put solder first onto the wire, and then we'll see if we can get the wire to stick to the pad. It's a very delicate solder joint, that's for sure. But it's on there. Let's go ahead and do the red wire, the plus 5 volts right next to it. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put solder on the tip of the wire, and then we're going to heat it up and reflow it to the pad. Okay, that time put a little bit less on there, so hopefully that'll help us out even more. Ooh, that one worked really well. That's a better solder joint on the red one than the black one. Go ahead and take a look at that. And then we've got SBUS, right? Go back to here. SBUS is the green wire. So there you have it. Those 3 wires are soldered to their pads. Okay, and then the yellow one here, that is your S.Port, right? The 3rd wire in from the ground. Ground, 1, 2, 3. And this one actually goes to this TX5 pad. Hey, sorry guys. So I'm coming to you from the future here. So actually, soldering it to the TX5 is not going to work properly. So after checking out the Maytech website, this is how you should do it. So first, you need to go to the Maytech website. I will put that there in the description. And then go ahead and click on Frsky S.Port. That's the second step. And then once you do that, you'll see a couple of different methods to get the Frsky telemetry working. So what I did is the first step here. So go to step 3 that you see here on the screen and update your XSR with the latest firmware. So I already did that. And then go to step number 4, and that there shows you all of the steps you need to do to enable the soft serial on your S5 or S6 pad. I chose S5. And then on this page, I just break down the directions and show you exactly what you're supposed to do. So this is the flow chart here of this next steps to make sure that you can get your S.Port telemetry working. So go ahead and type in all that information in your CLI, type save and enter it, and then from there go to the configuration tab. Make sure that your soft serial and telemetry are clicked on, and then after that go to your ports tab and make sure that you go down to the soft serial that you just created and enable the S.Port telemetry output. Okay, so now we can proceed to the next wire. So while I was touching up the ground wire, it's not sticking anymore to the pad, so luckily we have 2 ground pads. So let me just stick it to the top ground pad then. See if that'll work better then. Yep, that one seems to hold a lot better. I don't know what was wrong with the first ground pad. I think the flux might have overheated it or something like that, but that one looks a lot better now, so take a look at that. The flight controller has an arrow on it, and that's the arrow that needs to point towards the front of the drone. That way you are all synced right properly when you go into software. So there you go. There's the receiver. Let's put this motor ESC cable on, and that one's pretty simple here. So you just basically make sure that you don't bend any pins, and you got where you see the pins, that top side goes to the top side of the connector here. They are keyed, so you shouldn't have any issues putting them in, but if it doesn't go in easily, make sure you just don't force it and take it out and try to put it back in. And then we'll put the other one into the ESC here. Okay, that one, there was a little bit of force. I knew it wasn't going in, so we need to turn it the other way. Okay, that one went in pretty easy. So then, let's You're gonna need to turn it a little bit. Try to pull this back here and then push it forward, but keeping the black wires tucked underneath. I think that's the best way to keep this looking neatly organized. And then there you go. Put the flight controller on like that. I mean, they are computers, right? Little mini computers. Okay, the next parts are pretty simple. That was the hard part of it all, installing the receiver here. I'll go ahead and plug it in actually. That also only goes in one way. The next challenge would be the video transmitter, so that we can transmit the video from the camera back to your goggles or screen. So this is the video transmitter. It comes with a button on here, antenna here, and a connector here, right? So if you turn this over, you'll see that you've got these different signals here. You've got a data signal, video signal, 5 volt out, 2 grounds, and a power of 7 to 24 volts. And the right connector for that is going to be this one here with your yellow, black, and red. So you've got how many pins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pin connector, but only 3 are being used. And one thing that I learned about this is that since this has a data signal, this connector doesn't support that. And in order to change the channels, then you'll need to play around with this button. That one can be a pain in the butt. So if you just solve this problem early on right now by adding a wire to this connector, then everything should be good to go then. So what I did is I got also a JST SH 1.0 and Molex Pico Blade 1.25 do-it-yourself. So these are silicone coated wires. Basically, you can make your own connectors out of them. They give you a bunch of assortment of white connectors and wire lengths, and they already have their connector terminals on them, so you don't have to do any connector crimping, which is super nice. The connector is going to go in like that, so I know I need to put an extra wire on onto the right side of the yellow wire. And the connectors have a slot where the wire will make connection to the pin, and then it also has this little bit of a tooth that slides into this connector, and you can see that there's these white tabs along each part of the connector, and those tabs lock that tooth into place so that your terminal doesn't come out. So the way this goes in is the tooth side goes up where the white tabs are. Take your connector, your wire harness. Ooh, okay, that went in super easy. All right, so that went in there easy, and then now you got to push it all the way in so that that tooth clicks under that white tab. Boom. Did you hear that? I don't know. You don't hear it, I guess, but you can feel it. So, okay. And then this is already a twisted pair. I wonder if I can untwist it in a way, and then that way I can get this green wire twisted in there. We should be good now. Okay, there's your video transmitter wire harness completed. Go ahead and get your video transmitter, and then you can connect this in there. Let's see, make sure it's teeth side up. The video transmitter goes here. You can see that you've got 10 NC, VTX, and TX3 VTX video transmitter, obviously, so you know it's going here. It also fits in there. Boom. The next one is, I don't know, just grab this one. This is the GPS, it looks like. Comes with some double-sided sticky tape. We'll use that later. We'll mount it on top. So this is the ByTN or ByTN, or how do you ever say that? BN-220T GPS. And the GPS wire harness that I showed you earlier is this one with the black, green, red, and yellow. Go ahead and plug. See, you have 2 different sizes. The smaller size goes into this, which is the GPS side. Then this on the drone shows 5 volts TX1, RX1, SDA, and SCL, which is for the GPS. We'll make sure that the holes are at the top to align with the pins in the connector. Okay, perfect. Almost done here. GPS video transmitter receiver, this one, nothing gets connected into it. This is says ground buzz dash RGB and 5 volts. I'm gonna have to look into that and see what that is. I'm a beginner, so I'm thinking it's probably for like a buzzer or an LED indication that you could probably set up later for something. And then the last port here, this is the USB, micro USB, by the way, to connect to the computer. But this one is for the camera. And let's get the camera out. There's your camera. Be careful. Little screw came out. Put that back in there. Looks like they're the same screws as those. So if you do lose one, I think you might have extras there. So there's your fancy little tiny doohickey camera here. Comes with a nice lens cap. Put that back on for now. And it already has its connections here or soldered there, so you don't have to do anything. Just go ahead and just plug it in. Goes in just like that. Okay, perfect. Everything is connected now. If you want to do a smoke check or a function check, just to see if everything's working properly, you can do that. However, you first need to install the antenna. There it is. It looks like this in its own little baggie. Not ESD, but there's no electronics in this. All right, take your antenna and clip it. It actually just clicks right into place here. A little bit more force than you might think you need, but once you get that audible click, then you're good. And take off this nut, screw on your antenna. Right now I'm just getting everything screwed in real quick, and so I can do a function check, and then I'll put everything together and make it look nice and neat, and then we'll do the software. So first thing is get yourself a multimeter. If you don't have one, you should go get one. This is a nice cheap one I got as a gift from somewhere. I don't even know anymore. And I'm going to use the ohm reading here because I want to make sure there's like no short circuits anywhere when I first plug in the battery. Set it to that setting there, the 20K or however your multimeter works. And this is the battery cable, right? We'll go ahead, and if everything's good, you should not see it. Well, first let me show you that it works. So if you touch the leads together, you get 0 ohms, right? Because there's 0 ohms of resistance, or you get zero, very, very, very small amount, right? So that's what you should not see. Okay, so with the probes here, go ahead and touch the positive to positive, the black to black, and you'll start seeing that the resistance is increasing and increasing. That's because we have this capacitor right here that is sort of like a battery, and it's charging up and then discharging, right? But you can see that the resistance is increasing more and more and more, so you know there's no short circuit. If you did have a short circuit, when you touch the leads together, you will see just 0 ohms or a very, 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 very lowest resistance. So that's good. I also made sure that there was no solder balls or solder blobs everywhere where you were soldering with the motors and these chips here, because for me personally, I did have a few flakes in that area, and that could cause a short circuit. So make sure you're clean there, and you don't, wherever you solder, just make sure you don't have any solder balls somewhere, okay? Solder balls can be this big or smaller than that, even really hard to see. And if these start touching a couple different leads, they could cause a short circuit and then you're SOL again. I double checked all of the other connections. I think we're ready for the battery, and let's cross our fingers and see what happens. Double check. Okay, I have the antenna on. I'm really nervous because I'm a beginner and I'm not sure if I messed something up or if something is wrong, and all the connections should be good. Okay, we'll go ahead and plug it in. Ooh, that's a good sound, right? A good sign. Wow! It actually worked as a beginner of having everything plugged in, and that means all of the soldering was working. I think I saw all of the motors twitch, and I'm actually stoked it works. So we've got power to the receiver. We've got power to the GPS. You can see the light blinking. We got the video transmitter lights on and the flight control light on, and there's my monitor to show you that the camera is actually working and recording. Is that insane or what? Let's see. Whee! All right, I'm legit stoked about this. Let's see now. about installing the software and getting it working. All right, so that concludes this video of installing the flight control computer and all of the peripherals. Stay tuned for the next video, because then that's when I'll finish assembling everything and then we'll do the software installation, okay? See you guys in that video.